2017 in the Transportation Finance and Policy Committee. Today we have got 3 bills up, and the first one that we are going to start with is Senator Senjum's bill, Senate File 2010. 210. What did I say? 2010. Or 210. I'm still on. Senator Senjum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Mr. Chair, I'm not sure the appropriate motion. Is there a motion needed to remove this from the table? If there is, I so do make that.
No, we're just bringing it back.
Okay. Then thank you, Mr. Chair. So Senate File 201 has been before you before, and we'll continue this conversation today. But before we do that, along the way, there's been one more technical amendment that we need to do. It's the A23 amendment, so I would so move the A23 amendment.
A23 amendment has been moved, and I believe it is being passed out to the members as we speak. Senator Senjum, to your amendment.
Mr. Chair, this is, I would refer to it as a addition correction minute. It has no effect on the overall price of the bill, so to speak, but perhaps our Senate fiscal agent can help us with this. Ms. Stengel.
Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Yeah, this amendment just corrects totals that were not corrected pursuant to earlier changes in the bill. So the first on line 1.2, page 55, that's a change to the airports fund appropriation total. And then the second line on page 1.3, the page 58 correction, is related to a change in trunk highway bonding amounts, and the bond sale authorization remained at $62 million and should be changed to $197 million.
Members have any questions regarding the A23 amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A23 amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes. The amendment is adopted.
Mr. Chair, I have no other, presentation or testimony personally or otherwise to give to this bill, so we'd stand for committee discussion and/or amendments.
Okay. When we left off last week, we had gone through, I believe, all of the questions that the various members had, and with the exception of Senator Dibble. And we ran out of time, and so to be courteous to Senator Dibble, I would recognize him at this time if he has any matters that he wishes to bring up. Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer the A22 amendment.
The A22 amendment is going to be passed out, and once members have seen it, then I will have Senator Dibble explain the amendment.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Senjum.
May I get a copy of the amendment?
You certainly may. Senator Senjum needs a copy of the amendment at the table. Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'll give a brief description of the amendment. It's actually been a few days since I've looked at it, so I'll look to council to remind me of the other elements that I might miss. But very quickly, the basic idea of the amendment is to delete the earmarks out of the bill. I think I've probably made my point about the inadvisability of the level and extent of earmarking that is in the bill, whether those are local road earmarks or whether those are state highway, trunk highway earmarks. Commissioner of Transportation distributed a letter and spoke to it, and I've made a copy of that. That's the June 14th letter, and had that redistributed. And members, I would really, really encourage you to read that letter. Mr. Chair, members have also previously seen the letter, also prepared last summer, and communicated to House and Senate leadership, as well as the governor, and signed by 11 past chairs of transportation. I won't read it to you, but please don't throw it away. Please read it. This letter wasn't prepared for any political purpose whatsoever. It was prepared because there are deep concerns about setting one foot down this path. If we start down this path, Mr. Chair, we will never come off it. This is it. If we pass this bill and this bill becomes law, then never again will we do transportation in any sort of long-term, methodical, systemic way. All road and bridge projects from now on will be the product and subject of the political push and pull, much the way that we construct the bonding bill, which I'm not in love with, but that's just the way we've always done bonding, is we've figured out, what sorts of projects have political concerns and priorities of various sorts and types. The headings on the letter, I'll just visit for 1 second. Earmarked projects are not ready and require additional planning. Legislative earmarking eliminates transparency and fairness in project selection and funding. I'm going to visit on that subject in 1 second. Earmarking undermines efficiencies in planning and delivery of transportation infrastructure, and earmarking undercuts the long-term stability and utilization of the Highway User Trust Fund distribution formula. Also in your package of handouts, Mr. Chair, is the Minnesota Highway Project Selection Report of the Legislative Auditor, in which, to be sure, the Legislative Auditor finds a lack of transparency and some subjectivity to the decisions that get made internal to MnDOT. So it's not perfect. So to double down on lack of transparency and subjectivity is the opposite direction in which the legislature should be moving at the advice of the legislative auditor. And earmarking does exactly that. We know from the critique provided by the commissioner that, for example, the trunk highway projects earmarked, many of which are corridors of commerce, they're kind of interspersed between the state road construction and the trunk highway projects listing. Some of these just simply aren't ready. They don't have local partners. They need a lot more planning. And just within that list, $400 million is needed within the state, within the list of commerce, list of suggested projects. I have the list here. This is how long it is, and so we have absolutely no knowledge how this list was constructed, other than it did seem peculiar that the number of folks who were really happy at our last hearing, or the hearing before last, had pretty expensive lobbyists representing them. That's great. I'm happy for the projects that might be getting some money. That's great. But what about Highway 1 or Highway 2 or Highway 5 or Highway 22 or 169 or 71, or Highway 36 or 61. These all have mobility and economic development constraints, safety issues. People are having a hard time getting products to market, employees to jobs. There are crashes and there's degradation of those roads. So added to the amendment, Mr. Chair, is an initiative that would improve the transportation project selection process. So you'll see that on section 16, some suggestions about adopting best practices to strike that equilibrium, that balance that MnDOT really needs. We've been railing against how these projects get selected, kind of the black box that Senator Sendrum talks about quite a bit, and taking the needed input from area stakeholders in a way that in a process that people understand and know how to access, and taking that into consideration while at the same time providing for the objectivity, the analysis, the performance standards, the long-term planning elements, putting together the local partners, the land assembly, the environmental research, the economic analysis and the like. And so this directs the agency as well as the Met Council to improve on and find that equilibrium and create a best practices involving the FHWA and others as well in that, and making a report to the legislature so that we can proceed on finding that balance, finding a good process, responding to the recommendations of the legislative auditor instead of going in the complete opposite direction. We do make some improvements in some dollar amounts to some of the things that we traditionally support in kind of block grants, local roads, and local bridges and the like. And then with that, Mr. Chair, I'll just, so we have a full understanding of the amendment. Council, is there anything I forgot to mention? Huh? You want a quick walkthrough of the amendment?
Yes,
So we
Senator Dibble,
understand.
what I had intended to do is have Ms. Boyd walk us through it
Great.
and give a little bit more of an explanation as to the practical effect of the amendment, and then we'll open it up to discussion. So that would be my intention. Ms. Boyd.
Mr. Chair and Senators, I will walk through the amendment line by line as briefly as I can. On line 1.2 of the amendment, this is the appropriation for local bridge improvement. These are GO bonds, and this is an increase from 90 million to 100 million. The next line is the appropriation for
Mr.
GO
Chair?
bonds.
I didn't hear that number when you said it. It kind of faded. If she could just repeat the number.
Senator Westrom?
Mr. Chair, if she could just repeat the number, her voice kind of faded as she was saying the numbers, and I didn't quite catch the numbers.
Mr. Chair and Senator Westrom, I apologize. The local bridge improvement GO bond authorization increased from 90 million to 100 million in the amendment. The local road improvement program, also GO bonds, increases from 141.196 million to 150 million. Also, the next several lines, 1.4 through 1.7, I believe, removes specific earmarked projects under the local road improvement grants. But the amount of the overall amount actually increased to 150. Next, starting on line 1.8 of the amendment, these are projects that in the underlying bill are funded with general fund cash, and this moves them to GO bonds. So it totals $32.5 million for transportation economic development, small cities assistance, safe routes to school, and town roads. So we're general fund cash, now bonding, now GO bonding. The next on lines 1.25 to 1.26, these are just references to bonding in Article 2 and how that should be handled. All bonding is removed in the amendment from Article 2, so these sections are no longer needed. Line 127, delete Section 2 in Article 2. That removes the trunk highway bonding section completely from the bill including all the projects therein, and that is $197 million in trunk highway bonding. On line 1.28, this is just moving an existing appropriation in the bill. This is for an interchange safety improvement study funded at $300,000 from the general fund. And this moves it to a separate place in the bill because all the other general fund appropriations were eliminated as of the amendment. Line 2.3 of the amendment deletes section 3 of Article 2, and that is the section with all trunk highway cash funding and specific projects outlined therein. That is at $132.089 million, removed from the bill. Line 2.4 of the amendment removes section 4 of Article 2. This is the section with general fund cash projects totaling $166.5 million. As I noted, it kept the interchange study at $300,000 and moved it earlier in the article. So the elimination would be of $166.2 million of general fund cash. That included some specific road projects and removed general fund cash transfers to county state aid highways and municipal state aid roads and their accounts. What remains is the projects I listed on page 1 of the amendment, but those are changed from general fund cash to GO bonds. Line 2.5 deletes section 7 of Article 2, and those are just bond sale expenses appropriation, which are no longer needed because the bonding has been removed. And similarly, on line 2.6, it removes sections 8 and 9 of Article 2, which are debt service appropriations for the bonding and bond sale authorization language. And for the next part of the amendment, I'm going to turn to Ms. Stengel.
Ms. Stengel.
The remaining portion of the amendment that starts on line 2.7 is the provision that Senator Dibble mentioned that adds requirements around transportation project selection process. So this requires the Commissioner of Transportation, in consultation with other interested parties, to get together and work on and then adopt best practices for project selection. There are some parameters on what these best practices must include. You can read those starting on line 2.19. And then by next March, the commissioner must report back to the legislature about the best practices that were adopted. The final part of the amendment is on 3.7, 3.8, and 3.9. Those are to correct all of the internal cross-references and then adjust the totals accordingly based on the numbers that Ms. Boyd gave us.
And Mr. Chair?
Ms. Boyd.
I apologize. I wanted to summarize because there's a lot of moving pieces in this amendment, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
That effectively what the amendment does is add $51.3 million in GO bonds and removes $166.2 million of general fund cash, $197.197 million of trunk highway bonds, and $143.198 million of trunk highway cash.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boyd. Senator Osmek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there a roll call on this been requested?
I do not believe so.
I will request a roll call on this amendment.
Roll call granted.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Osmek.
Chair. Senator Dibble, just to clarify, you are stripping out the provisions that added safety features to Highway 12. You're stripping out Highway 10 funding. You're stripping out Highway 14 funding. Senator Friends and Senator Jasinski, I'm sure, will be very entertained by the fact you're eliminating that. You're eliminating funding for Highway 23. Is that a fair reading that you are eliminating those projects from this bill?
Senator Dibble, do you wish to yield? Senator Dibble.
Mr. Chair, Senator Osmek, that is correct.
One other
Senator Osmek.
question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Senator Dibble, it seems like you don't appear to appreciate earmarks. When we get the HHS bill to the floor, where there are direct appropriations to community organizations, don't go through any competitive grant process, go directly to the organizations without any kind of oversight, am I going to see amendments from you deleting those also that are earmarks?
Senator Dibble.
Mr. Chair, Senator Osmek, I have supported efforts in the past to not do direct granting to community-based organizations and rather do those through a competitive grant-making process in the Health and Human Services realm. I don't know if I'm going to do an amendment or not. I don't know. That remains to be seen. But I feel the same way about that practice as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate you being
Senator
consistent. Thank you.
Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I really appreciate this amendment. I share Senator Dibble's view, and I appreciate his bringing it forward, that it is a really problematic thing for us to head down this path and begin this new way of doing things, because we know once we let this cat out of the bag, we're not putting it back in. And for members who are thinking about this and who are seeing projects line itemed in the bonding bill as it has been presented, I would just ask you to think. So right now, if you have one of these big projects that does have a lot of sort of regional support and a lot of lobbyists, that's great that it's on the list now. But what if you have a smaller project somewhere in your district that is also very important? Are you going to have the influence to make sure that it gets handled? You know, seniority matters, the committees you're on matters. You know, there's a real question of how these projects will get selected. And it may look good right now, but I think we all need to stop and think very seriously about what that means. I also think that the language in here about trying to move us in the direction of greater transparency is very valuable. For example, over the past few years, I've appreciated that Senator Kiffmeyer has raised really great questions about this issue of transparency and how MnDOT selects projects. Those are very important questions, and I think this language that Senator Dibble is offering in this amendment moves us much more in that direction. So I would just say that, and then my question that I want to get to is, when you look at Article 2, and I'm just going to run down the list really quickly, to the question that Senator Osmek had raised, does this amendment mean that these projects, such as 23, 14, 10, and 12, will not get attention?
Senator Kent, to whom is the question addressed? Senator Dibble.
Mr. Chair, Senator Kent, this amendment does not mean these projects will not get attention. Double negative, does that work for you? Yes. In other words, MnDOT has a process by which it considers and selects and builds projects. And, you know, a number of these are clearly of high priority for a bunch of the factors and reasons that we've heard in the form of testimony as well as legislators' advocacy on these. I'll go you one further. Voting for the bill as is does not mean the projects on the list will get funded, because they're not ready. And so I think it's quite disingenuous when we make a claim to our local communities that we've funded a project that can't receive the dollars because it's not ready. The planning isn't finished, the local partners haven't put their money up, the studies haven't been completed, or for any number of reasons. And there's not enough money to fund all the projects on the list. And we have absolutely no idea. Senator Senjum described this as a very fragile bill, and you know, it's like a Jenga stack and you can't pull anything out. We have literally no information about how this list was compiled. It was put together by two people in a corner office in the middle of the night at the end of the year last year. That's all we know. So we have no idea why this is such a fragile stack of highly sensitive list of projects, when we have a whole lengthy list of critiques of the individual projects from the commissioner about why some of these aren't ready and why there is insufficient funding for a number of them.
Senator Kent, did you have anything further? Senator Little.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm coming at this with an outside viewpoint since I just got here, you know, not even 2 months ago. And I think folks in my district don't have a whole lot of confidence in the state capitol getting transportation done. When I'm reading through my emails and when I get done deleting all the, not deleting, but answering this pro-Sunday sales emails, in between those emails are we going to get a transportation bill done? So I think that speaks to the lack of confidence they have in us, unfortunately. So I'm coming at it with that viewpoint where we need to get something done. I don't like earmarks on transportation. I agree with a lot of Senator Dibble's comments in regards to that. But I also have to come at this from a practical sense, which is we got to do something. And I think this moves the needle just a little bit forward on getting some transportation funding done. I also agree with Senator Dibble's best practices amendment. I'm the chief author on the best practices bill. Senator Senjum is a co-author on that bill, and I think the chairman likes me enough that we'll get a hearing on that at some point. And so I think if we were to put together that best practices bill as well as pass a transportation bill this session, that will provide people with enough confidence that we don't need to do earmarks anymore. So I'm comfortable with a one-time earmarking bill in capital investment, and hopefully going forward we can do a more comprehensive transportation bill. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members. I feel I was sent here to represent the people in my district, which you know I'm very close to. The Highway 14 partnership is 40 years old. I've worked for families who've lost family members along that road for my 30 years as a lawyer. And I think each of our ultimate duty is to figure out what's best for our district and what's best for the state. I fully support the best practices portion of the amendment, which is to look to the way we do things. And I support Senator Dibble's spirit too, which is let's try to make it good for the whole state in the way we select these projects. Like Senator Little and the rest of the freshmen in our caucus, I'm new. And the idea that this means we can never do it a different way in the future is a little bit foreign to me. Therefore, in the end, I look at the testimony of Karen Foreman that this committee heard 1 week ago, in which I asked her, do the people in our district care where the money comes from to complete Highway 14? And she said they do not. They don't care what silo of money it comes out of. They just want to see it done. And I appreciate the chance to address the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I also appreciate the amendment and the spirit of this amendment in terms of process and fairness, even though there is one project that not directly in my district, but just next door in Bloomington, the Mall of America Transit Station, which we know needs improvement, and it's in your original bill. This bill would no longer, in my understanding, would be prioritized and would have to compete with other projects. I would like to know that, or note for MnDOT, that it will indeed, if there is an immediate need for projects like that, I believe it's between 8 and 9 million to get that transit station ready for showtime in terms of the upcoming Super Bowl, which we know that this is an immediate need for the city of Bloomington and for our state, frankly, to get ready for that particular event in 2018. So there is a prioritization of bills that would also be something that is part of that discussion and rating and process. So in light of that, even though it might not be, and I stand corrected if it is indeed unaffected by this amendment, it's still something that I want to support because it will continue to bring fairness to the process of selecting projects to move forward and bring fairness in rural communities, metro communities, suburban communities, because we all have needs in our district for road improvements.
Senator Jensen.
Mr.
Thank you,
Chair,
Mr.
just
Chair.
correct to Senator Franzen's point.
Senator Dibble,
the project
to her point.
she's concerned about stays in the bill. The amendment does
Go
not
ahead,
touch
Senator
it.
Dibble. Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would Senator Kent yield to a question?
She will. Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Senator Chair. Thank you, Senator Kent. I also am new to this process, as is Senator Little, and thank you for that opening, if you will, Senator Little. You said that you were concerned about us moving in this new way, but this is essentially the same bill that you voted for in May. So this isn't really a new way today. Wasn't this in place last year in the month of May, and then it was forwarded to the House, or maybe I'm confused. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Jensen, I voted against this bill in May, largely for this reason, among others, because I think it is that bad a precedent for our state. And I think all of us as members really have to look at what this is going to mean in terms of taking care of serious transportation needs throughout our communities if we move forward with this.
Mr. Chair, please, a follow-up?
Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Senator Kent. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you clarifying. But it did get passed, didn't it, by the Democratic Senate at that time and moved on to the House, but the House had already adjourned? Please, just refresh. I just want to understand this, because I also have concerns about earmarks. But I'm just trying to understand, how did this process get started? And is this brand new, or has this been something that was there last May? Thank you.
Senator Kent.
Mr. Chair, and I'll let Senator Dibble take on some of the details. Yes, this did pass. There were a number of people from both parties who voted for this bill, largely because particular projects have been cherry-picked in here to win those votes. That is not the way to fund our critical infrastructure of our state. It looks good right now, but this is not a long-term sustainable solution, which is what we really need to be doing if we're serious about our infrastructure and the investment that we're making for our future economy.
Mr. Chair, please.
Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Kent. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also new, so there's quite a few of us new here on the Transportation Committee. But again, I spent time in the district, and Highway 14 is the #1 thing in my district that people want to see and done. And it's been, I think, 55 or 60 years, how many years they've been waiting on this. And, you know, I think that's transparency in itself. I mean, people have been coming in and testifying, and we see it here as transparency versus somebody making a decision somewhere else. And I appreciate the transparency process and trying to clear that. I'm also working on a bill that we have dropped. But looking for Highway 14, and I see here in the language here, it says that the Metropolitan Council will have input on the highways. And I'm just wondering how much positive movement they would want in Highway 14 if they're the Metropolitan Council. That's it.
Senator Dibble, did you have anything further before I go to Senator Senjum?
Oh, Mr. Chair, I can just make a concluding statement at the time.
Go ahead.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Westrom?
Well, Mr. Chair, just to maybe add a little bit more about what happened last year, I guess I don't know that I would fully agree with Senator Dibble's assessment of two people went in the office and picked this out at the last minute. One of those two people would have been Senator Stumpf, who spent weeks and weeks hearing bills in his committee and knew a fair amount of the bills and the issues that were in front of that committee, and that was the bill that came forward. So as does any bill, eventually culminate and come together with a few members and staff working on it to present it to the rest of the bigger body, committee, or members of the Senate. It didn't happen just in a day or two's notice. It was worked on for weeks, and these were all bills or interests that had been communicated to the bonding committee and the bonding chair, who were integral in helping put this together. So I don't want to leave the public or others assuming that this whipped together in 24 hours, because it certainly didn't.
Senator Dibble, I'm not sure if I understood whether you had any concluding remarks. Then
Yes.
I'll recognize you, and then I will go to Senator Senjum because it's his bill. So Senator.
So, Mr. Chair, this version of the bill showed up in the last possible.
Excuse me one moment, Senator Dibble. Senator Carlson, did you have something before Senator Dibble addresses the committee?
Yes, I do. Excuse me. I want to support Senator Dibble's bill. You know, one of the things that when some of the freshmen speak of not being around for long and not knowing what the process has been, the major process and the major reason that we have the Senate is to have a little bit longer perspective on what processes, what policies, and what conventions we're going to adopt. And one of those that we've been very protective of is collecting revenue for transportation, And then also not earmarking, because we have given that responsibility to MnDOT so that we don't get any kind of personal, let's say, personal pressure put onto MnDOT so that some things are out of sequence. MnDOT has a revenue that they forecast, and they have projects that they forecast to be able to be spent on with their level of priorities. And in this particular case, I need to be sure that I point out one project, and it's on, in this bill, it starts at 53.23, Cliff Road near I-35W. That's in my district. I didn't ask for it. And I've asked who has prompted this. But if I look at a letter from the, from MnDOT on a, I guess it's an unnumbered page here, it says the Cliff Road I-35W interchange in Burnsville. And it mentions the amount of money, but it says, and this is 118th Street and 35W, the 118th project awaits the mining of an adjacent gravel quarry, which will not occur for another 20 years. Now, we're putting that into priorities. That is moving ahead of many others that are being done here. That is the definition of an earmark. It does not have the senator's okay or promotion to be put into this, nor the representative of that district. That's in my district. I didn't ask for it, and I think it's the wrong thing to do to put this that isn't necessarily important for the next 20 years. We have a bridge to do there. This shouldn't be done without the bridge, and the bridge can't be done without this. So this is the kind of problems we get into when we suddenly have, and I'm sorry, this was done without my involvement, and it is pushed ahead of many other projects, and some of them might be Highway 12. Some of them might be others that are important because of safety concerns or other kinds of concerns. So this is a very dramatic demonstration of what an earmark does, and I really don't want to be part of that kind of earmarking. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, just to follow up on that.
Senator Senchuk.
Cliff Road is mentioned in the bill, but it's not specifically designated. So the commissioner has some level of option relative to proceeding on that.
Okay, I'm now going to go to Senator Dibble unless, all right. I'm going to recognize Senator Dibble, and Senator Dibble, I'm not sure if you have moved your amendment yet or not.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the A22 amendment.
All right, to your amendment, Senator Dibble.
Thank you. I think I've made my points. I just need to respond to a couple of arguments that were raised quickly. One is this bonding bill presented by Senator Stumpf did not involve, by Senator Sendham, did not involve Senator Stumpf. He was cut out of the process, and this was created in private with only a couple of people on hand, and this list kind of appeared out of thin air. We've heard the critiques of these projects, and I just need to respond to the statement that at least this is something the public doesn't trust us. We're moving something forward. This is a form of transparency because look, my project's on here. This is a one-shot deal, and we are going to have the exact same set of issues in our laps unless we actually pass a long-term transportation funding bill that makes investments over a long-term planning horizon. When someone raises the point that my road is in here or isn't this road in here, you're making my point. People feel an obligation to vote for this because the project or the road that they've been sent here to advocate for is in the bill. Well, there are other roads in your district in the future that might not be on this magic list, and so your constituents will be asking you, hey, why aren't you doing your job? Or what about your colleagues who don't have roads on this list? What kind of crosshairs are you putting them in? You know, Joe or Jill Senator got their road on the magic list. Why can't you? What kind of a crummy legislator are you because you can't get your road on this list? There's a lengthy list of projects and, with communities that don't have the money to hire lobbyists or the stretch of road isn't long enough so that a whole bunch of communities can't come together to advocate for that. So you make my point when you say, I'm super happy that my project is on here and I'm going to fund for this. And then in the future, we'll do this reform and we won't have roads on the list. Well, I promise you, we do this, this passes into law, we never go back. I'm not doing this for political reasons at all. This isn't about the DFL and this is not about the Republican Party, and I may be the only yes vote, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that. We have never done this before. The Transportation Alliance represented that, yes, we have done this before for local projects. We have never done this before to this extent for local road projects. We've done this on the occasional odd bridge here and there, but we've never done a whole huge laundry list of selected and put to the top of the list a bunch of local roads, which may or may not be ready. That was a misrepresentation on the part of the Transportation Alliance. We've certainly never spent this level of trunk highway cash and this level of trunk highway bonding in the bonding bill with a bunch of projects that we have no idea how on earth they came together. So, Mr. Chair, what's happened in the past, to those who are new, is that chairs, both the bonding chairs and the transportation chairs, have exercised restraint and caution despite inviting folks to the Capitol to present their individual projects, to advocate for them, to help influence the thinking and the list development on the part of MnDOT, to give folks the opportunity to illustrate the pressure around economic development and mobility and jobs and employment and safety that occur. But they've exercised the restraint and the authority invested in them by virtue of having the gavel of not developing this kind of list, because this is an impossible kind of bill to vote against for a lot of people. And so you get the requisite number of votes and it gets through, but it leaves a lot of people out. It leaves the long-term planning prospects out. It takes all the air out of the sails of trying to actually develop a long-term funding package. We don't even know of the $166 or so million in general fund if the legislature on the whole wants to spend this much of the surplus on transportation. So we don't even have that information yet. So for those reasons and others, I would encourage members to support the A22 because this is a terrible precedent. I don't begrudge the Transportation Alliance. They've been swinging for the fences to try to get transportation funding, and so this is something, to the earlier comment, so we might as well do it. But we do it at our own peril because we never, ever will go back to doing the kind of thoughtful long-term planning and long-term funding that we had in the past.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. The only thing that I would add to the comments so far is that what MnDOT is referring to as earmarks, I refer to as constituent requests, and I don't feel bad about it. I do not agree with Senator Dibble or Senator Kent that if we go down this route, it's irreversible and we'll never be able to go back. I don't believe that to be true. And I will say that I have read the letter dated August 12, 2016, regarding various individuals addressing the issue of what MnDOT calls earmarks. But to me, this is not a Republican or a DFL issue, and I agree with Senator Dibble on that. This is an issue of what is best for the state of Minnesota. And I believe that the project selection process with MnDOT is deeply flawed, and it is not transparent. And if this is what it takes to get MnDOT's attention, then that's the direction that we're going to have to go in. And I believe that we will have hearings on the project selection process in the future, and I would certainly invite Senator Dibble or others to come forward with their best practices idea at that time. And so for those reasons, I will tell the members of the committee that I do not support Senator Dibble's amendment. Senator Senjum, final word on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. A lot to say, but I'll try to be restrained. First of all, I appreciate Senator Dibble's comments and certainly his amendment. I'm thinking about a newspaper which I wish I had brought down. It's on my desk up in my office. It's the Rochester Post-Bulletin, and in the boldest of headlines you can imagine, with a big picture of Senator Bach and a couple of other senators, and one who's not here anymore, it says, "Legislature fails again." Folks, let's not fail again. Fails to pass tax bill and bonding bill. And Mr. Chair, and many of you that were here remember so well that we're here with a bill like this at this point because we didn't have a transportation bill last year, and I don't believe much the year before, and I'm strained to remember about the year before that. So there is urgency behind transportation and bringing this forward, and that's the reason it was assembled like this. Let's also remember that, if you would, that we're here, there was a group. It wasn't necessarily a conference committee because we didn't have bills passed off either side, but there was a group of 10 members, 5 aside, House, Senate, that did work for the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks of last session assembling this bill. And I hear from time to time comments about, well, we never saw it. Well, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I know that I was part of working on this bill. I was part of presenting it to our caucus somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 to 10 o'clock on May 22nd, almost presenting it to ad nauseum because we covered it so long and so well that we moved on to other subjects. So at least Senate Republicans did have a chance to see this bill last session. If I didn't say it, it passed 103 votes in the House. It had 53 in the Senate, but I would offer that part of those 53 were probably votes that were cast because the Southwest Light Rail Amendment was in that bill, or in this bill rather, at the time it was passed. So I'm not going to hold the Senate to 53 votes, but certainly a lot of support in the Senate, no question about it, both sides. I think I'll just conclude because Senator Little and Senator France, you said it much better than I can. It's really time to move on and get moving with the bill. And I hope that we can, first of all, reject this amendment and pass this bill out today because it's got yet a journey to go, but it's important to the citizens of the state of Minnesota that we move forward and both a good bonding bill and I think a very good, at least, transportation effort at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson will take the roll.
Newman?
No.
Newman, no. Anderson?
No.
Anderson, no. Carlson?
No.
Carlson, no. Dibble?
I'm sorry. Carlson, yes, on the amendment.
Carlson, yes. Dibble?
Yes.
Dibble, yes. Franzen?
Yes.
Franzen, yes. Frentz?
No.
Frentz, no. Hall?
No.
Hall, no. Jasinski?
No.
Jasinski, no. Jensen?
No.
Jensen, no. Kent?
Yes.
Kent, yes. Kiffmeyer?
No.
Kiffmeyer, no. Little?
No.
Little, no. Osmic?
No.
Osmic, no. Senjum?
No.
Senjum, no. Westrom? No. Westrom, no.
On a vote of 4 yeses and 11 noes, the motion does not pass. The amendment is not adopted. At this point, members, it would be my intention to proceed with a vote on the underlying bill. We've discussed it, I think, at length now, so I'm not anticipating any further discussion. Mr. Nelson will take the roll. I just was reminded that Senator Osmic had previously called for a roll call vote on this bill, and so we are taking the roll call vote at this time. Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Senjum.
It'd be at least the author's preference at this point that we move this bill to the Finance Committee.
Oh, my apologies. And that is your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Nelson.
Newman?
Yes.
Newman, yes. Anderson?
No.
Anderson, no. Carlson?
No.
Carlson, no. Dibble?
No.
Dibble, no. Franzen?
Yes.
Franzen, yes. Frentz?
Yes.
Frentz, yes. Hall?
Yes.
Hall, yes. Jazinski?
Yes.
Jazinski, yes. Jensen?
Yes.
Jensen, yes. Kent?
No.
Kent, no. Kiffmeyer?
No.
Kiffmeyer, no. Little?
Yes.
Little, yes. Osmic? Osmic, yes. Senjum?
Yes.
Senjum, yes. Westrom? Westrom, yes.
On a vote of 10 yes and 5 opposed, the motion does pass, and the bill is on its way to the Finance Committee. Thank you, thank you, Senator Senjum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I do sincerely appreciate it.
Next on the agenda is Senator Frentz bill, Senate File 291. Senator Frentz. Senator Frentz, thank you for your patience. We were intending to address this bill last week and ran out of time, so I really do appreciate your assistance in the delay. Senator Frentz, to your bill, Senate File 291.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members. I'm here to present Senate File 291. I want to start by thanking my co-author, the chair, Chairman Newman. This is a bill that relates to disability plates issued by the Department of Public Safety and expands the definition of eligible vehicles to include motorized bicycles. As you may know, Minnesota Statute 168.021 defines who can get disability plates. This bill passed with no opposition through all Senate committees last session and was amended onto the budget bill. Since the transportation articles were ultimately removed, the provisions in Senate File 291 were eliminated. So I'm asking you here to do something for people. We're sent here to help people. This helps people that use a motorized bicycle that are permanently disabled. You may have in your packets, I hope you do, a statement from a person from my district, Orville Stamreilers. Looks like this. And then also a picture of the motorized scooter that he uses looks like this. The short version, Mr. Chair, is that Mr. Stamreilers is a man I know. I coached his son in baseball, and he's a 70-year-old Marine Corps veteran. Has damage to his legs, and he is eligible for disability plates for his truck, but he usually uses a motorized scooter. So this is a bill that helps a few people, but a great deal. And as you can see from his statement, he's tried just about everything else in order to be able to get around town. I see him riding on this scooter sometimes and was somewhat unaware of the issue of the disability plates. This bill simply would add the definition of motorized bicycle to our current definition of vehicles that are eligible for disability plates. And you may know that Minnesota Statute 169.011 defines motorized bicycle. So the Department of Public Safety, which issues the plates, is neutral on this bill. I also have a fiscal note, and the cost is zero. I have not heard from a single party since I introduced this bill that is in opposition, and I was not advised that the last time around this bill was opposed by any parties. I'm asking for your support so that we can say to a few people in Minnesota, hey, we did something for you, which is the main reason I feel that we're sent here. Thanks very much, and I'd be happy to stand for questions.
And Senator Frentz, am I correct that the definition of a motorized bike is a bike that is 50 cc's or less, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. And travels at less than 30 miles an hour also.
Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, Senator Friends, in your working on this, it struck me last year, and it strikes me again, that it's bizarre that we have to go through legislation for this, and the department doesn't already have this as part of their authorizing authority and establishing plates for vehicles traveling and disability plates. Have you come across any discussions like that in your bill, or is this the only way they could allow it?
Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Westrom. I was a little surprised, as I had mentioned before, I work in civil litigation, which involves public safety. This is a person who already qualifies under the statute as permanently physically disabled, and for him to need legislation to get a plate for his scooter surprised me a little. I will say that, as you can see from his statement, he had tried to use a hang tag, so there was some effort to get him what he was looking for, but it was ineffective. It's an open-air scooter. So if the question, Mr. Chair, is should we have needed this, I guess I would say, A, maybe not, but B, these people clearly do want it, and this will be a clear answer. Thank you.
And it would,
Mr.
Senator
Chair.
Westrom, it would, if we look at the statute, it goes from motorcycle to a one-ton pickup, and we are simply inserting a motorized bicycle, which has got a separate definition. Senator Westrom.
Well, Mr. Chair, it seems that this certainly could fit under motorcycle, but anyways, I think it's a good proposal. It just, again, reaffirms how common sense sometimes doesn't gets trumped by statutes, and I'm happy to support this, and you know, it's an argument of why flexibility and common sense sometimes needs to be written into statutes when we pass them, because this could have been made easier for your constituent and others seeking this, but let's get it remedied this year. Thank you.
Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Friends, how many people are probably in the same category as your constituent here that, needs this for his getting around? And I'm just curious. I got to believe there's more than just this one person.
Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Anderson. I only know the way I extrapolated numbers from what we understand from the department about the ratio of motor vehicles to motorcycles to motor scooters. And if the ratio is the same in the disabled community, it would be a few dozen that are, eligible for this in our district. And so I guess statewide, I wouldn't know. I don't have any specific motorized bicycle stats or how many seek to use it in the same way this gentleman does, but it's a significant number. Well, that's the only one I heard from in my district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Senator Friends, one of the things is that when you say motorized bicycle, there are such things as electric bicycles that are not scooters. Would this fit that as well if somebody had an otherwise similar situation of a disability?
You mean
Senator Friends.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator. You mean if they fit the definition of permanently physically disabled? I think it would. But I could pull the definition, or maybe council has that. We have the language here, which includes motorcycle, motorized bicycle, one-ton pickup truck, or self-propelled recreational vehicle. And motorized bicycle, as I said, is defined in 169.021, although I didn't print a copy of that definition for the committee.
Well, I would say, Mr. Chair, bicycles can park in a bicycle. Thank you, Senator. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. But that bicycles do have a place to park, so I don't think it's an issue for them. But it was just a definition. Thanks for the citation. That was that clarifies it. Thank you.
Ms. Stengel, maybe you could help us out of our confusion.
So I think part of the, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, I think part of the issue is just the way we think about things doesn't necessarily line up with the words that are used. So a motorized bicycle is, like the picture that was presented, is a scooter, essentially. It's not something that you pedal when you think about like kids riding a bike. There is another category of bicycles called, let's see, electric assist bicycle. So that's the pedal bicycle that you can get that has like the little attachment that's a motorized assisted. So that's something different and doesn't fall under this bill.
Senator Kiffmeyer, does that help?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chairman, that was additional clarification. Very welcome. Thank you.
Any further questions for Senator Frentz? Seeing none, Senator Frentz, thank you very much. We will lay Senate File 291 over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the record, I am asking that it be sent to the Senate floor. I understand it's the intent to lay it over. Working for constituents like all of us, just wanted that on the record. And thank you very much, and thank you, members.
Thank you, Senator. Next up is Senator Clausen's bill. Senator Clausen is here. I was looking for you earlier. Senator Clausen's Bill 7, Senate File 589. Certainly. Another chair senator will arrive shortly.
Here we go. Thank you.
Senator Clausen, welcome to the Transportation Committee. Yours is the last bill up today, and you've got 25 minutes. And we have to be out of here. Senator Clausen, to your bill, Senate File 589.
Thank you, Senator Newman and committee members, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce Senate File 589. It's a bill to designate the bridge over U.S. Highway 52 and State Highway 46 in the city of Coates as the Corporal Benjamin S. Kopp Bridge. Corporal Kopp was a member of the 75th Ranger Regiment and a Rosemont High School 2006 graduate. While serving his third tour of duty in Afghanistan, Ben's unit attacked a Taliban safe haven in Helmand Province. The fighting lasted several hours, resulting in the death of more than 10 Taliban fighters, and Ben was wounded. He was flown to Germany, treated there, and eventually flown to Walter Reed Army Hospital Center here in the States. But Ben passed away on July 18, 2009, and is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Ben distinguished himself with the Army Achievement Medal with 2 awards, the Army Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Service Medal, the Iraq Campaign Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Army Service Ribbon, Parachutist Badge, and the Ranger Tab. Following Ben's death, he was awarded the Bronze Star with Valor, the Meritorious Service Medal, and a Purple Heart. Ben requested that he wanted to be an organ donor, indicating his request on his driver's license and his living will with the Army Rangers. After he died, his heart was donated to a 57-year-old family member's friend who is alive today because of Ben. Ben had a deep love of country and was proud to serve and defend our freedoms. Designated the Highway 52 bridge in the city of Coates in the area in which he was raised will be a reminder to all who pass of Corporal Benjamin S. Kopp's ultimate sacrifice on our behalf. Ben's mother, Jill Stephenson, is unable to be with us today. However, you have a letter in your packet that she asked to share with you. I'd like to read just a couple of paragraphs from that letter. And this is in Jill's words. One of the common things parents who have lost children will say is that they fear their son or daughter will be forgotten. They want them to be remembered. They want to hear their names, which they typically do for a time following their deaths, and then the memories begin to fade as life goes on for the rest of the world. It doesn't for us in the same way. What we are left with is memories, memories that have to last the rest of our lives. There are no new ones. So why a bridge to honor him? Ben Kopp was as selfless as a human can be. He gave of himself. He was living, and again after he died. His legacy is that of an American hero, a boy who followed a dream born out of love and admiration for his great-grandfather's service as a World War II veteran and to vindicate the deaths of innocent people on American soil. A young man whose grit and determination kept him on course to fulfill the dream to serve his country by the age of 18. A permanent memorial in the community where he lived will give all who pass the bridge and its signage the opportunity to look up his name and get to know who Ben was and who he became. They will be educated about what it means to be a hero and learn that it's not just about serving your country or donating your organs when you die. It's also about being kind to people and pursuing your dreams of becoming who you're supposed to be. And with that, Mr. Chair and committee, I'd like to turn testimony over to John Berund. Thank you. Grandfather of Ben Kopp.
Mr. Barone, welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
And please proceed with what you want to tell us.
Okay. My name is John Barud, B-U-R-U-D. Barun is a color, I think. Anyway, I am Benjamin Kopp's maternal grandfather. I feel honored to have been given the opportunity to say a few things about Ben, my grandson, and why he should be honored. He was a very highly decorated corporal in the Rangers, Special Operations, and I'm going to tell you how he was recognized. He grew up in Rosemount, graduated from Rosemount High School in '06, started his career in the Army in July of '06. He became a Ranger, and he was deployed 3 times, twice in Iraq and once in Afghanistan. It was in Afghanistan where he was wounded trying to save his fellow Rangers during an attack by al-Qaeda snipers. It was in this battle that on July 10th he was wounded, and he died 9 days later at Walter Reed Hospital. He had been in a coma, and it was there that his organs were donated. Even though many soldiers are killed in action during a deployment, what makes one soldier stand out more from others? I believe Ben was one of those soldiers. His actions were different. He was assigned to the Rangers Special Operations Unit. They have secretive missions that nobody knows about, especially in Afghanistan. They are assigned all these missions and are in imminent danger 100% of the time. Their assignments are to seek and destroy targets that are deemed critical to the safety of soldiers and citizens of the country in which they're in, and also an attempt to destroy targets that could be a danger to soon arriving American soldiers. Benjamin Kopp, while on this mission, was shot in his leg. He bled out on the field, and they had to open his chest up and bring him back to life, which was only 8 more days. How was he honored for these actions? Senator Clausen had mentioned a number of awards that he had. I just brought in a copy of the certificate for the Bronze Star that he received. If any of you want to look at it, you can. I'm not going to read it. It specifies what he was engaged in the day that he was shot. And that I will say that on this particular mission where he was shot, there was also members of the FBI who were also on that secretive mission. And Ben had approximately, we were advised that he took out 7 or 8 soldiers from al-Qaeda on his own to save his friends. At Ben's funeral at Rosemount High School, among family and fellow friends and soldiers in attendance were United States Senator Amy Klobuchar, United States Senator Frank L. Franken. Also in attendance were Governor Pawlenty and his wife. Governor Pawlenty on that day had ordered the flags throughout the state of Minnesota to be flown at half-staff in Ben's honor. At his burial at Arlington National Cemetery, after a funeral was held in Rosemount High School, it was his request he be buried at National Cemetery in Arlington. The Secretary of Army and the Secretary of Defense attended Ben's funeral. Amy Klobuchar, our senator, was there. Al Franken was there again. General Votel, who was a St. Paul resident, still is a four-star general in the Army right now. He was Jill's escort for these services. It was noted in the Washington Times, the LA Times, and the New York Times that at Ben's funeral, this was the first time in over 2 years that the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Army had attended a soldier's funeral. I brought something else here. This is a book that was written by Oliver North called Special Operations. And in this book, I believe it was published in 2011, he devotes one chapter to my grandson, Benjamin, which is right here. I do have it marked if anybody wanted to take a look at it. So Ben was an organ donor. In addition to being a great soldier who was honored by the highest ranking people in our services, he was an organ donor, and over 60 people received tissues and organs from Ben after he died. His heart was given to a woman from Illinois. Because of his donation, Ben's mother, Jill, and the recipient of Ben's heart were invited to 3 national network morning shows to be interviewed about this act of his heart being donated. In 2011, at the Rose Bowl Parade, there was a float that was dedicated to organ donors, and that particular float still operates at the Rose Bowl Parade. Benjamin and my son, who were organ donors, my son died in 1982, were honored on that float, and they had their faces on the float that were designed by flowers. In 2016, a highly decorated U.S. Army Ranger who was credited with over 160 kills of al-Qaeda operatives, was on national TV and being interviewed. They asked him if he had any regrets. His comment was, "I only have one that I couldn't say of Corporal Kopp." Benjamin Kopp was a special soldier. If you asked him today if he were here, he would be very humble and he would say, "I don't need any credits, I was only doing my job." To honor his name and accomplishments at such a young age and naming a bridge in his honor would be a reminder to all who cross that bridge that he gave his life for his country, his fellow Rangers, and the citizens of this country. Finally, I'm going to quote a passage from the Bible that was a part of the funeral handout at Ben's funeral. And it was right next to his picture, and it says, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in and sharing that story with us. We really do appreciate hearing from family on these types of occasions. So on behalf of the committee, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
We also have a Mr. Lund here as a testifier. Mr. Lund.
My name is Bill Lund. I'm a journalist. Jill Stevenson, Ben's mom, asked me to be here on her behalf. For the last 2.5 years, I've been researching and writing a book about Ben Kopp's life. The name of the book is Heart of a Ranger, and it's due out in May of this year, and it kind of traces Ben's entire life story. In May of 2006, as his grandfather pointed out, Ben graduated from Rosemont High School, which is 20 minutes away from here. 3 years and 1 month later, Ben was a highly trained special operator on an operation in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. That day, as John described, Ben and about 65 other Rangers were trying to nab a very high-ranking member of the Taliban. They had traveled by marine vehicle overnight, and they'd gotten a little off schedule, and they were now operating during the day, which Rangers don't normally do. They'd split into 4 squads, and 3 of the 4 squads were suddenly ambushed. Ben was not among the squads that was ambushed, but there was a group of snipers and recon guys who were literally laying on top of each other flat in a hole as sniper fire was peppered around them. Ben and his squad got word via the radio that these guys needed help, and they rushed under fire in the direction of this squad of recon guys and snipers that was pinned down. Ben was a part of a machine gun team, and when they approached that field and realized where those snipers were, they set up Ben's machine gun and some other weapons that other Rangers were carrying, and they opened up with cover fire. So those 6 guys that were trapped under Taliban fire jumped up and sprinted 100 meters to safety. So he literally was part of saving the lives of these 6 guys. One of those guys was Nick Irving, who was a pretty well-known Ranger sniper, and Irving said, first of all, the Taliban was moving in on us. He actually was considering taking his own life because he didn't want to give the Taliban satisfaction of killing him. He would later say that had Ben and that squad not come to his rescue, the 6 of them certainly would have been killed by the Taliban. Unfortunately, a few minutes later, as they were exiting toward a safe house, a compound that the Rangers had commandeered, they came under another attack, another ambush. Their platoon leader, Captain Kruger, was shot in the back. Ben, as his grandfather said, was shot in the leg. The bullet ripped through his thigh, tore his popliteal artery, and Ben was bleeding severely. Some Rangers dragged Ben about 800 meters through a ditch under fire to that safe house. But again, about 2 days later, Ben was in Walter Reed, and it was clear to doctors that he was brain dead. They got Ben's Blue Book, which is a book that all soldiers fill out before they go into combat in case something happens to them. And Ben had checked yes to being an organ donor. And under which organs would you wish to donate, Ben had written in his own hand, any that are needed. Within 24 hours, a teenager from the D.C. area had one of Ben's kidneys. Another young man had another kidney. A man of about 60 had his liver. A woman in Pennsylvania had his pancreas. And his heart was on a private jet being flown to Chicago for a heart transplant. That woman is still alive today because of Ben's sacrifice. So as many have said, Ben saved, in his last act in life, he saved six fellow Rangers, and his first act in death saved at least 5 or 6 people and many more through other forms of organ donation and tissue donation. Ben knew the risks of what he was doing. He came home for the last time in May of 2009, and he was standing in a driveway in Rosemont talking to 2 of his high school buddies, Josh Maldonado and Richard Rivera. And Rivera was an Army reservist. He knew what Ben was into, but Josh didn't know much about the Army. And as they talked, Josh said to him, you know, Ben, you might die. He said, I know I might die, but I know my risks. And Rivera urged him at that time, change your job, get out of the Rangers, do something, you know, behind the scenes in the military. And Ben said, nope, I'm an Army Ranger, I'm a patriot, I'm willing to die for my country. Ben's mom, Jill Stevenson, by the way, Ben was the only child of a single mother. Ben's mom hangs on to his truck. I think it's like a 2004 or 5 Chevy Silverado. And every year that truck leads the Ben Kopp Memorial Ride from Apple Valley, along the St. Croix River, over on the Wisconsin side, the Minnesota side. And I said to Jill the other day, how cool would it be to be driving Ben's truck with 100 motorcycles roaring behind us and go right over the Ben Kopp Memorial Bridge? That would really be an experience, and I hope that that can happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lund. Mr. Kikebush.
I'd like to thank Senator Clausen and the committee for granting me time to speak today. I'm Joel Kikebush. I'm a teacher at Eastview High School in Apple Valley. I'm also a board member on the Warrior 186 Leadership Foundation. The Warrior 186 Leadership Foundation was established in 2016 via a merger between the Christopher Gakey Leadership Foundation and an organization called the Warrior 186 Memorial Trust. The trust was started in 2013 as an effort between myself and 2 Gold Star parents, one being Jill Stevenson, mother of Ben Kopp, and Randy Gakey, who was the father of First Lieutenant Christopher Gakey. Randy was also the founder of the Chris Gakey Leadership Foundation, which was established in 2011 after Lieutenant Gakey lost his life in Afghanistan in the previous summer. The CGLF, Randy's organization, was responsible for offering $2,000 in scholarships to graduating seniors attending Apple Valley High. The Warrior 196 Memorial Trust offered $4,000 in scholarships, one to a graduating senior from each of the 4 high schools in Independent School District 196. Both organizations combined their efforts in 2015 and coalesced their missions to honor and remember the lives of Ben Kopp and Chris Gakey, as well as 3 other young service members who graduated from District 196 schools. The poet said, "Speak my name and I shall never die." I'd like to read the name of all 5 of the District 196 graduates who've given their lives while serving the nation overseas. Captain Nathaniel Doring, 1993 Apple Valley High School graduate and a U.S. Marine helicopter pilot who died in Iraq in 2006. U.S. Marine Lance Corporal Daniel Olson, a 2004 Egan graduate who was killed in action in Iraq in 2007. Corporal Ben Kopp, a 2006 graduate of Rosemount, who was mortally wounded and later died of his wounds in July of 2009. First Lieutenant Christopher Gakey, a 2004 graduate of Apple Valley, who was killed in action in Afghanistan in 2010. And Corporal Andrew Wolfert, a 1997 Rosemount graduate who was killed in action in Afghanistan in 2011. All 5 of these young men came out of District 196. As Minnesotans and Americans, we owe these young men our civil liberties and our freedoms. Our foundation, with Jill and Randy and myself, will continue to work towards remembering and honoring these young men. We support the Memorial Bridge Initiative, as well as any and all efforts to create permanent and visible reminders to all of us of their sacrifices to the nation and to us as citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions or comments? Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just incredible story to hear, really special, especially from the different perspectives of each one of you have. But I was just thinking, as I read a little excerpt from the book, it was about his time as a student, and he had a frenetic energy to him that would make parents and others and teachers tear their hair out as to what will this become, right? It goes to show it's not all bad, right? There are some that are created in a very special way for a very special purpose, and so often we may not see that there, but now in hindsight you kind of look back and see those special qualities that Ben had. And so it's been great to hear the story, and I just kind of wanted to say, next time you see those kids around, maybe there's a special purpose for them, and might tear so much of our hair out when we see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank Senator Clausen for bringing this forward. And I'm a co-signer on the bill, partly because I'm a graduate of Rosemount High School as well. And I really want to make sure that we do recognize people who have given their all for the rest of us so that we can enjoy sitting here and being free and being able to live and breathe normally. And I want to add 2 more names to the names that were mentioned there, because I had two high school classmates that also lost their lives, and they're on the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., and also they're down here on this memorial. And that's Donnie Schmidt from Egan, and Dennis Groth, who was from Inver Grove Heights. Dennis Groth was a helicopter pilot. Donnie Schmidt was in the Army, and he passed away after taking a grenade in their tent. And then there's many more that I discover as I discuss this with other folks. There's a Larry McCormick, who was a couple of years older than me, and his home farm was right near the Apple Valley Zoo. And then there's a few others that I just can't bring up their names at this moment. But these are the kinds of voices that I like to support when we're talking about how to honor these people in the long term. It's not the kind of thing that we want to forget. So I'm hoping that this name on a bridge will not only remember Ben Kopp, but also it will help everyone remember just what has happened in our past here and that we need to honor these people. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Clausen.
Senator Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question's, and by the way, I appreciate hearing about Corporal Kopp. What a story. But my question is, how do we decide the criteria for somebody to get their name, a bridge named after them? And I'm hearing about a lot of different people, Olson, Doring, Gakey. Is there criteria that the state has in statute to do something like that, or how does that happen? And, you know, I think there are many stories, I don't know about many, but similar stories, I would assume, out there of heroic acts and unique
and extraordinary people, as Corporal Kopp was. So, does anybody know on that? Senator Anderson, heading the Veterans Committee?
Senator Hall, I think the answer to your question is it's up to us. And we, on this committee and then on the Senate floor have to decide whether or not the individual is worthy of the honor. This would be an example of one that, to me, would be really, really easy to decide, but maybe not necessarily so. So I think it's taken on an individual basis. Any further? Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Clausen and your testifiers. For an individual to give of themselves, taking and raising their right hand and saying, I will fight, I will protect this country, is a major sacrifice for all. But when they give their life, and it's recognized by the community and the wherewithal of their school district and others in it's basically they come with their story. They come with the background information that we received today to us. And as Senator Newman has eloquently stated, that we make the final decision and based on what has happened and what has come forward. And we are basically given the trust of the people to make that decision from our standpoint to go forward to the benefit of Senator Clausen and to his testifiers here. So basically all of our men and women who've come and willing to sign on the dotted line as volunteers right now. We're not in a draft situation with the military, but the willingness to come forward and put their name on the line and willingness to go forward to give of themselves and say, I will fight, and I will let my life be an example for others is a story in of itself of each individual. They might not come back a hero, but in the eyes of their family and the people that they love and the people that they have surrounded themselves with, they're a hero in and of themselves of just the willingness to give themselves to the principles and the guiding forces of our country and where we've come from. So I accommodate my condolences to the family and for the willingness of Representative Corporal Kopp to give of himself and for his family the willingness to give and allow him to go forward. It's a testimony of his heroism to not only his community but to his country. So I thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Senator St. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And there aren't enough highways or bridges in Minnesota to honor all that probably should be honored. Just a case in point, several years ago we developed a memorial in Rochester. There are 2,767 names of individuals that gave their life in service to our country on the Wall of Honor on that memorial. And every one of them gave their all. In this particular case, I drive that road a lot, hundreds of times in the last 15 years. I will now remember forever Corporal Ben as I travel Highway 52 down or coming up from Rochester. Totally an impressive story, and I really thank you for coming forward today, Senator Clausen, and your witnesses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as a veteran, I sympathize with you, and I'm sorry for your loss, and it was a great story. I didn't serve anything like your grandson did, but it was one of the best things I did is serving in the military. And I would echo Senator Anderson's, get these people out to volunteer themselves to fight for the country, I think is a great thing to do and a very proud thing to do. And again, I'm sorry for your loss and commend for all he's done. It's a great story, so thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, I would entertain a motion. Senator Clausen, I believe this matter is to go to the floor Do you agree with that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion that Senate File 589 be recommended to pass and be sent to the floor on general orders. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I so move.
Motion has been made to send File 589 to the floor and recommended to pass. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion is adopted. Congratulations, Senator Clausen. You are on your way to the floor. And gentlemen, again, thank you very much for coming in and presenting this bill to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair and committee.
You are welcome, Senator Clausen. With that, members, we have completed our agenda and we stand adjourned.